You're listening to the Agent and the Fan podcast with sports agent Chris Leible and fan Lou Columna.
Welcome, everybody, to the Agent and the Fan podcast. I'm Chris Leible. I'm the agent. I'm here with my man, Lou Columna. He's the fan. Lou, what's going on? We're in the off season and it's free agent time.
Yes, sir. I can't wait, man. I think things are going to start heating up. Obviously, end of this month, beginning of next, when the winter meetings come up. So, by the way, are you going to the winter meetings this year?
I don't think I'm going this year. I got a bunch of things going on, and I don't think I'll be able to make it this year. The winter meetings is great for an agent if you have top free agents. If you don't, it's very hard to get time because they really are meetings going on for the teams and the club officials. So there's a lot of job seekers there. There's a lot of things happening. If you have a lot of stuff to do, and you have a lot of players that are sought after, fantastic. At this point, because of my situation, I'm not in that position, so I'm going to probably sit this one out.
So a question about that before we go into our episode of Free Agent Frenzy episode. What is the genesis of you're at the winter meetings, you're an agent, you have player X, whatever that player is who's sought after. How do deals get done during that time? Does it come together quickly? Are we talking?
It can. It can. It just depends. It depends on the player. It depends on the team. It depends on the interest. If it starts heating up, it could happen very quickly. It could happen very early. Travis d'Arnaud is an example who signed very quickly and early. So there must have been some mutual interest, and that solidified a deal very quick in the process. It's changed quite a bit. When I first got in the business 20 plus years ago, the winter meetings was where everything would happen. Then it's kind of changed. A lot of things happened early. A lot of things, then it started shifting where things were happening after the new year and towards spring training. So there's maybe some strategy behind it. Maybe it's just some of the, sign of the times type of thing. But, it's always exciting. I think basketball and football are very different in terms of free agency because it just seems like the top guys go right away, and then the pecking order kind of is determined that way. Baseball is not like that at all. The top guys might go last. The top guys might go first. You just don't know. But I think as far as an agent goes, you gotta, you're going to connect with teams and teams are going to connect with you. So you kind of know your market. You got to know your market. You got to know who you're looking at, who your the teams of interest are for you, for your player, and then you kind of address it there. And if you could meet in person at the winter meetings, that's a great opportunity to do that. And if you can, for me, I always just tried to get as many meetings as I could with teams and use that to try and sell my players, because I would always have a list of free agents. Again, I didn't necessarily have Juan Soto's at the winter meetings a lot of the times. So, you're talking about mid-level or lower levels or even minor league free agents. Those are the guys you're trying to sell. So yeah, the bigger names will get you in the door as an agent, but sometimes that's where you get your deals done. Like, hey, listen, we're looking for a third baseman, AAA, who might be a depth piece for us. Oh, well, I have this guy, let's talk about him. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good name. I like it, and that might not be somebody that's obviously first on their radar, but that, maybe you don't even get the deal done there, but that's somebody you keep talking to as you get closer. But that's the winter meetings, and those are coming up in a couple of weeks. I'm sure we'll have a winter meeting show. But today is, as you referred to, Free Agent Frenzy for our show. Now, last episode, we had Tim Durkis from MLB Trade Rumors, was a great guest. He talked about their big list of 50 free agents. We're not going to cover 50 free agents necessarily today. And we did, of course, go into great detail about Juan Soto, the biggest name on the market. And we also went into Pete Alonso, just because he's an interesting name and a very interesting case in this cycle. But I think we want to go into more of some of the other free agents who, even we might have mentioned their names, who are out there, what they're going to do, where they could end up, what are the roles, who we like, who we don't like, who are guys we're willing to spend money on, and, and get into that a little bit. So let's do it, Lou.
Let's go. I'm gonna start with whoever doesn't win on Soto. For me, Anthony Santander is the guy to get. He's gonna cost you a fraction of the money. Switch hitter, 40 home run hitter. He's proven to play. In the American League East, which is a tough division with the Yankees and the Orioles. I mean, with the Red Sox. So I really like him, and I think, listen, he's not Soto, but he's a great consolation prize, and you're not having to go 15 years, 12 years on this guy. I think you could have him for 5-6 years. If it gets a little crazy, maybe 7, right? But definitely between that 5 and 7 year range, you can get this guy.
Yeah, so Anthony Santander is a guy that I actually represented for a bunch of years early in his career. Great guy, very high character guy. I'm personally a very big fan of him as a person and as a player. I like him a lot. I agree with you. I think he's a guy who can help teams. He's a guy who was kind of under the radar, had some injuries early in his career, didn't really have the prospect status, persevered, and finally got the opportunity. He had come up in the Indians organization, Guardians now, and the Orioles gave him this opportunity, and obviously he hit 40 plus home runs this year and took great advantage of it. I agree with you 100%. To me, Anthony Santander is a great pickup for anybody who's going to get him. I think he's earned what he's going to get, and I think he'll produce. Like you said, a switch hitting outfielder who's gonna solidify a lineup, middle of the order bat. So I like him as well. I think Anthony's a guy who has a chance to be a great addition to a team. And you're right. Maybe some of the teams that are in on Soto will be on Santander, but there could be other teams too that don't that Soto's too rich for their blood.
Yeah, that
like him a lot too. So he's certainly an intriguing guy, and certainly after Soto, the outfield power bat that you're talking about. I don't, there's not, Teoscar Hernandez, another guy in similar guy. And when you talk about Teoscar Hernandez, he's a guy who didn't, just like a lot of guys last year, we've talked about this, didn't get what he thought he was going to get. Signed.
By the way, I was surprised by that last year, to be honest.
No, I agree. And he signed the short deal with the Dodgers of all teams. And he turned out to be a huge piece on that team this past year, especially with their injuries and things that happened. And the other thing he's bringing to the table now is he's done it in the postseason. This guy's performed. He was, yes, he's not Ohtani and Mookie Betts, but he was, or Freddie Freeman, but he was the next really guy on that team. And he was a huge asset and a huge piece. Again, for me, and we talked about this with Pete Alonso last week, when you have a presence, and when I say a presence in your lineup, and when I say presence, I mean a guy who you have to pay attention to in that game, knowing this guy's coming up and he can hit a home run at any time. You're talking about a 30-plus home run guy, productive RBIs, driving in runs, getting on base, doing the things that you're going to need on the offensive end. Then this is a guy. So to me, Teoscar is another, asset I think deserves what he's going to get. And I hope he gets a good deal this year. He seems like a good dude. I don't know him, but
no, I agree. I think Teoscar, a couple of things about Teoscar that I would not worry about, but like I would have in the back of my head. I would not sign him as a centerpiece of your offense. He's a good,
complimentary player, but
but the point is that a lot of these teams are going to see what he did. And listen, there's no disputing he's a great player, right? But a lot of these teams, and we've seen it happen over and over again, where they reach for a certain guy.
Okay, but Lou, we've talked about this before. Okay, Major League Baseball is football is similar to the NFL or college football, but And Major League Baseball is a team sport, okay? You need to have all your cylinders going, okay? I don't think anybody is going out there signing Teoscar Hernandez saying this guy's going to, change our team completely, okay? I think he's a great piece to a puzzle, okay? And I think that's what you're looking for when you sign a guy like that. And that could be the same to be said for Anthony Santander. And quite frankly, Juan Soto is a terrific player, but and I know Scott's out there, Boris is out there, saying that he's a cornerstone of your organization, and he is a great player, and he might be a great piece to your organization as far as in the community and be a part of your off the field as well. But again, I've said this before, I said it a million times. In baseball, there's no Michael Jordan I have Michael Jordan and he's gonna dominate games himself. That doesn't work that way in baseball. Yeah. Okay. And we've seen it over and over and over again. So I don't see anybody, any team going, hey, Teoscar Hernandez is a guy that's gonna, take over our team and be the complete difference maker.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but I do think
we've seen in the past. I'm sorry, before not to cut you off, I'm not discrediting Teoscar. No. I love him. I love the guy. I think he's a great player. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, baseball doesn't work like that. You can look at Ohtani and Trout. They were the two best players in the game, and they didn't win anything with the Angels, right? No,
I agree. I just think, again, like I said previously, we've seen it before where sometimes, not that they reach, but they give that extra money to that guy.
Yeah, but depending on how much you need him and what the piece is, you might give a few extra bucks to this guy to lock him in because he is a great asset. And I think that's my thought on Teoscar, and I think the same could be said with Anthony Santander. So, I
have next. I have Alex Bregman at third.
Yeah. So you got some infielders. Alex Bregman obviously is done pretty much everything in the game. He's a great player. Obviously, he's been on championship teams. Two-way guy, good defender, good hitter. Certainly would be an asset to any team. A little older, just like we said with Pete Alonso, college player who hit free agency a little later, signed the contract earlier, and I love Alex Bregman. I think he's a gamer. I think he's a great hitter. I think he's a great fielder. I think Willy Adames is, you could put him in the same boat as him. Yeah. And for me, Willie obviously is a shortstop first. Is he going to sign with somebody as a shortstop? Possibly. But I think he's also, been willing to accept moving to third, which there might be more of a market there. So that's a guy also that I really like a lot in Willy Adames. This is a guy who's a proven guy. He could be a guy, possibly for the Mets, maybe if, depending on what they're going to do. Obviously, he wouldn't be shortstop for the Mets, but he could be a third baseman for the Mets. I think if Juan Soto isn't, doesn't choose the Mets, if that's what they want to do. Another guy, and again, this is the free agent frenzy, but another guy whose name has been bandied about, who I think you've put in that class with those two guys is Arenado. Arenado is apparently available. Didn't have a great season this past year, but the proof's in the pudding. Is he going downward? He might be, you're talking about maybe the greatest third baseman of all time defensively, and certainly a great bat. Maybe he'd be rejuvenated if he went to the right place too, and be bringing a lot to the table as far as veteran experience, pedigree, all those things.
Yeah, no. Listen, Nolan. The resume speaks for itself. Listen, he's on the downside of his career. We know that, but given the right team in the right environment, he could be a solid player. He's not going to be your superstar anymore, but we know he can play third base for sure. He's not going to hit you 35 home runs anymore. But listen, if he can get you 25 home runs, get you 80 to 90 RBIs, not bad, right? Especially if St. Louis eats some of that money.
Yeah, so he's an interesting one as well. But so that's so I mean, I think that covers that group. I think if you're going down the list maybe a little further, at least on my list, there's still a handful of bats that are out there that'll be available. The guy that I think is kind of getting overlooked a little bit, who I think is a super productive player, has done a great job, is Christian Walker.
Oh no, listen, I don't think Christian Walker's overlooked, man. I think he's gonna get a lot of offers. Great player. For me, the one guy that I think really could surprise people is Yohan Moncada. I really think that. I think, listen, he didn't, the year prior had a good year. Last year was a lost year, but the guy is still young. He can hit. He can hit for power. He can play third base. I really like him as one of those signings that surprise signings. You give him 2 years and kind of reestablish himself. But I really, really like him.
No, that could definitely make sense. And I wouldn't be shocked if he could bounce back and had a good year. Speaking about bouncing back and having a good year, Jurickson Profar last year was a guy who kind of,
I didn't have him on my list, but yeah.
And this guy had a terrific year, and I think he's a guy, to me, that's a winning type player that I would love to have a guy like that in my organization. And depending on where it kind of falls and things play out, I mean, I think he could be a difference maker, and he could be a guy that we see on a good team next year, and potentially getting a very good contract, and also just being a difference maker. Just because I think he's a good, well-rounded player who I think was kind of overlooked a year ago, and he shouldn't be overlooked this year. Is my thought.
Yeah, listen, I'm super happy for him, man. You're talking about there was 10 years ago where he was like top prospect, number one prospect. It just goes to show you sometimes these guys don't pan out right away. Sometimes they got to struggle. Sometimes they mature a little later. And I think 100%. He's an example of that. And I hope he gets everything he asked for. I mean, he's a solid player.
No, I agree. And then the other guy that I thought, has had a good year, and I think is another guy who I think could, depending on how it plays out, he should make some good money and could be a very big asset, is Tyler O'Neill. He's a guy who played great defense, hit 30+ home runs. I like Tyler O'Neill quite a bit as a player, and I think he's a guy who can help a lot of teams. So again, I don't know if he's at the top of the top list, but he could be just as much of an asset as pretty much anybody we've named on this list.
Yeah, listen, I agree with that, and I think if he's smart, he stays with the Red Sox. I mean, listen, all things being equal. I mean, he proved he can play in Boston. That's a tough market to play in, and he performed. I mean, this guy, he was a stud for them. He was a stud.
Yeah. So we'll see. They haven't. To this point, they haven't signed him. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes and what the interest is and where they are with the whole thing. But so that, I think that covers as far as what I want to talk about. Unless you have anybody else as far as the bats.
The bats, I have one more, and it's the Hae-Sung Kim from the.
Yeah, that's. It's funny. I was thinking of him too, and he obviously got hurt. Interesting guy, because here's a guy who had played second base. They had signed, what do you call it, to the huge contract, the shortstop. Bogarts to the huge contract, and he played second base. And here you're talking about a team with like 7 shortstops, and he ended up being the shortstop before he got hurt. Bogarts took it back over after he was out. But yeah, he's a great player, man. I mean, I'm not sure his injury status and if he comes back 100% to start spring training. But yeah, I mean, another guy.
He's my sleeper pick.
Yeah, I like him a lot too. I think I like him a lot too. He's a very good baseball player. I like him a lot. So that said, we're gonna go into the net. Like I think the thing that is hanging over there is the starting pitching.
Starting pitcher, yeah.
Now, last year, obviously, we waited the whole winter to see what was going to happen with Blake Snell and Montgomery was the other, huge name out there, and it didn't really pan out for either of them. Snell had his opt out with his contract with the Giants, and he I think we talked about him last year. Guy did have a great year this year, and he definitely stepped up, and he definitely, I think, quieted a lot of the naysayers who felt like, yeah, the guy's won 2 Cy Youngs, but he's not like he's not the type of pitcher, a number one in that he's gonna, bear that weight of giving you the innings load. And this past year, he took on a lot of innings and went places he hadn't gone before, and he kind of showed everybody that. And I think for that, he's certainly at the top of the list with Corbin Burns as the 2 top guys that are out there as far as you're talking about a number 1 type starters that could certainly change a franchise or upgrade a franchise quite a bit.
For sure. Man, listen, here's my take on Blake Snell. He had a great year last year, undoubtedly. I still think, listen, he's going to get a better contract this year for sure. But I still think that there's teams that are like, I want to see it. I want to see more. There's still teams that are like, hey, he's a year older now. So he's going to get his money. He's not going to get what I think the money he really, really wants. I don't think he's there because I think that money goes to Corbin Burns. If you're giving me both guys, I'm taking Corbin Burns over.
Well, again, there's going to be more than one team that needs a number 1 starter.
Exactly. So, but I think to me, Corbin he's the guy who's going to set the market because Corbin Burns is the better.
No, I agree with that. But I think Snell has earned his keep, and he's proven to people, and I think he deserves a big bump up from what he was getting offered last year. And will be interesting to see what Scott Boras and his group does with him. Will they go long term again? Are they going to roll the dice again for another year? I'm going to guess they're going to go long term, get the best deal they can get for him wherever that is. And
I agree.
And it'll be interesting to see where that is, and this guy's been obviously started in Tampa and had a great run there, ended up on the West Coast. Seems like he's more of a West Coast guy. Would he come back and look at teams like the Mets and Yankees? It's going to be where the money is, most likely. I agree. But look, this guy's.
By the way, he's proven he can play in the East, right? He played on great Tampa teams.
Yep.
In a great division, so he doesn't
on the Cy Young.
Yeah, and exactly. So I don't worry about him being able to play on the East Coast. That's the least of my worries. This guy's already proven he can do that.
Yep. No, I agree. But I agree. Listen, Corbin Burns, another guy. To me, a great pitcher. I think he's gonna command a lot of money, and he'll get a bunch of years. And it'd be interesting to see where he goes. I think there's going to be a lot of teams in on him if they're not already. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I like him a lot. I mean, I think he's the best pitcher. There's a select amount of teams that can get him that need him, right? Yep. But this guy, look, he's going to command over $200 million. That we know for sure. He's not going to get Garrett Cole money, but listen, he's just as good as Garrett Cole. He's going to come at not now, Cole's going to be at 144, but Corbin Burns is a great pitcher. He proved he can pitch, on a good team in a great division. So I don't worry about him. I think the Orioles, if they're smart, you sign him. You give him what he wants.
But listen, these guys all have the chance to do it, and they haven't done it yet. So where do you think he ends up? Gun to your head.
I think he ends up in Baltimore. I really do.
Really?
I really do, because I think Baltimore has a new ownership. They have the money. They have a great team. because if they lose him, listen, they're still a great team, but you need pitching. And this is a guy who's pitched for you already, who's proven he can play in your town, and is a young guy. Give him his money. Give him his money.
Yeah, he's a fascinating. Where he ends up is going to be fascinating to me, more than most in terms of that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, listen, to me, the Mets could use him, but if the Mets land Soto, are they going to want to spend another $200 and somewhat million on a pitcher?
Yeah,
that's tough.
We'll see. I agree. I don't know if they can get Soto and Burns, or if they're willing to do that, but we'll see. I think, and the next guy that I think is on that list is Max Fried. He's a dude that I really like a lot, and I think he's a guy who can end up in a lot of different places too. And I think he will have a lot of interest, and I think he can be a difference maker wherever he ends up.
I think so. The only thing that I not concern myself with, but it kind of like raise an eyebrow, is the Braves are not going to sign him, right? He's not going back to the Braves. We know that. The Braves let him go. The Braves know him best. That to me lends itself to, because you need starting pitching in this league. He's a great pitcher. Why are the Braves kind of like just letting him go? That to me.
Well, I think the Braves have been very wise with their money. I think
more than wise. These guys have been brilliant.
John Coppolella did an unbelievable job building up the organization. He was let. He had some issues. Eventually got reinstated, but I give him a lot of credit for building that organization up. But I also give Alex Anthopoulos a lot of credit, because this guy did an unbelievable job of locking in the young players, very similarly going old school on you to the 90s Indians.
Yep.
When they locked up all their young studs before they hit the open market. Yep. And Alex Anthopoulos kind of took that and ran with it, did a great job, and certainly, complimented the great players that Coppolella had originally gotten him in there. And so I think your point is well taken on the Braves, but I think they're very careful with what they're spending money on, and they're more locked up on the guys that they can lock in early, and they're not looking to spend the premiums on these guys. And Alex is always bargain hunting and finding. If you ever notice the waiver wire, he's always claiming guys. They made a smart move with, I think, Soler, for example, bringing him back or whatever. Ozuna, they got it a good deal, and look what he did this past year. He was top few in the MVP and guy. So, I mean, look, I think that may be more than, hey, this guy's not worth it, and that's why we're not bringing him back. So I think he's interesting. Jack Flaherty is an interesting guy. Obviously, good stuff. Great career. I think he's a guy who's going to get paid well. Might not be my favorite guy, but you can't deny his stuff. He's got very good stuff. A little hit and miss.
He reminds me of Nathan Eovaldi, from 5 years ago.
Yes.
When Nathan was like, he was teetering on, like, he was inconsistent, and then he was,
But sometimes guys like that are the ones that push you over the hump.
Yeah,
like Nathan Eovaldi did with the Red Sox a few years back.
Without question. Okay? But I mean, he's like probably third or fourth on my list in terms of starting pitchers.
No,
that I would go.
No, I agree with you on that. But I'm just saying, like, he's not. I think he would be an astute sign for the right team. Yeah, and I'm a fan of his. I think he's a guy, if he connects with the right organization, the right manager, pitching coach, could really thrive and keep his his good career going. It's funny you mentioned Nathan Eovaldi. I actually have him on my list just because I love this guy. I got a lot of respect for him. I had a chance to go spend some time with him a few years back at an event. Really cool guy. I think he's an interesting guy in that he can do different roles. He's, like you said, he's a little older now, but always still has great stuff. He can start for you. He can middle relieve. He can close. He's not opposed to doing any of the above. And I like him as a guy, as a complimentary piece. Maybe not on the high level we're talking about, on the highest level at this stage of his career, even though I think at one time he was there.
Yeah.
So I like him a lot, and I think he could be a sleeper for a team out there.
Listen, if I was Nathan Eovaldi, I'd say put me in the American League East because he's going to kill the Yankees every time he pitches. So, whether it's Tampa, the Red Sox, the Orioles, he seems to get up for the Yankees. But
I just like him. I think he could be a good guy for the Mets, maybe as
without question,
guy who can help them.
He's solid. I like him. I like him a lot. The one guy we haven't discussed yet, and I think this is the most intriguing guy for this whole year, is going to be Roki Sasaki from Japan. 23-year-old, throws 100 miles an hour. He's a literal free agent. Any team can sign him due to the rules, and he's not 25 years old, so he's 23. So that to me is going. And listen, we already had rumblings that the Dodgers are the favorites. That the Angels are. He wants to stay in the West Coast. Who the hell knows? He could end up in Milwaukee for all we know. But that's going to be a guy.
No, Suzuki's an interesting name that's been out there for a little while now. Again, we talked about it last year with Yamamoto. What is this guy? We don't know him. We don't know his personality. We don't know what his makeup is. Is he happy to be, the third wheel with the Dodgers? Does he want to blaze his own path? Remains to be seen. But there could be some money around him, and I think you're right. If the right amount of dollars, and again, I'm not sure who his representation is.
Yeah,
but
I mean, listen, he's going to come cheap because he's not going to come. He's not a free agent. I mean, he's going to be subject to
hosting and all that,
to rules, right? So he's going to be like Ohtani was when he signed with the Dodgers. I mean, with the Angels, that he signed for $8-9 million, and that's what. Had he been 25 years old, he could have commanded Yamamoto money. So literally every team is in on him because they can afford him. So
I agree with you. I'll tell you what though. My sleeper guy that I really like, that I feel like no one's talking about him, and the Dodgers wouldn't have won the World Series without him, is Walker Buehler. Wow. I mean, Walker Buehler is out there.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
And to me, I mean, he's kind of, he's had some big surgeries and been rebuilt. But to me, this guy is a game changer. His stuff is as nasty as you can get. And he might come a little cheaper. And I'll tell you what, if I'm a GM, that's a guy I am all over. And I'm looking to lock him in early and often.
For the right price.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, I'm being aggressive on him, and I'm going after this guy. And he might jump on it just because it seems like his name is kind of muted at this point. And I can figure out why. The Dodgers don't win without him. Look what he did. He came out and he closed out the World Series. After all that he's been through, like, this guy showed him. And, again, I'm a little bit – it's funny because, like, I talk about this with my – you take a side note to my, my build, and – like, my son just kind of looks like me and he pitches. And so I kind of like always tell him about like Walker Buehler or like the Yankees closer. Like, these guys have the same build, like a similar build to us. Like, Walker Buehler's like 6'2", like 180 pounds or whatever. So it's like, that's like my build right there. That's what I'm assuming like my son's going to be. And like these guys, like, but their stuff is so electric, and you're like, damn, like, so like, he's still there and he's still good. Like, I know he's not the phenom he was 7 years ago, but like, he's still young enough where he could, he can command a good contract and outperform the dollars that they're talking about with him. So I love Walker Buehler. That said, though, there's still two other guys on my list that we haven't talked about that I think will make an impact and really had terrific years this year. And they were talk about astute signings. They were astute signings for David Stearns and the Mets. And that's, of course, Sean Manaea and Luis Severino. And I think both those guys came at, fair prices, more than fair prices. And both of them, the Mets they both kept Mets in games all year long. Manaea had a little rough beginning. Severino, I think, was very steady and solid throughout the year. Love both these guys. I think they can both get much better contracts this year. They will get much better contracts this year. Severino bounced back, obviously showed early promise with the Yankees early in his career. I know you know him personally.
He's a different pitcher now, too.
What's that?
He's a different pitcher now.
Yeah, no, but I really like the guy. And Manaea I thought was fantastic, and it just seems like a good dude. I don't know him personally, but just seems like a very smart, good pitcher. Again, same with Severino. Had some adversity, bounced back, and I think the future's bright for both those guys, and both those guys will be assets to whoever's going to sign them, and we'll get good deals that are fair for them.
I agree. I think, man, listen, if you can prove that you can play in this town and you've performed, if I'm that team, Yankees or Mets, whoever, you try to keep those guys.
100%.
Because you don't know what the next guy could bring. And by the way, these guys are relatively young guys, and these are not old guys.
No, they're that's what I'm saying. These guys are going to get good deals. And a couple of these guys are going to get great contracts. So just to wrap up, so we've covered almost everything. There's one last category that I wanted to just cover. And to me, it's might be the most important category, and that's relief pitching. Yes, okay. We just watched it in the World Series. We watched the Dodgers win the World Series with multiple bullpen games. And the number one guy out there is Tanner Scott.
Yep.
Tanner Scott, to me, is a terrific relief pitcher. Is he the highest of level, closer? I think he's below that. Yeah. But to me, this is a guy that I would target if I was one of the top teams, and I'm talking about Dodgers, Yankees, Mets, Phillies. This is a guy that I think, whether he's your closer or not, you're seeing the game kind of shift where these 7th and 8th inning guys are as important, and it goes back to almost the old Goose Gossage, argument or Bruce Sutter argument that are like, that they would come in the 7th inning if the bases were loaded to get out of the jam, and then they would just finish the game off.
But here's the question, though, about Tanner Scott and, let's say, the Mets. He's going to want to be signed for closer money because that's what he is. How does that work with when you got Edwin Diaz?
I would give him the closer money. Edwin Diaz he's not going to get Edwin Diaz money.
He's not going to get Edwin Diaz money. But he's actually, you know what? I take that back. You may.
I don't think you'll get Edwin Diaz money, but I think I wouldn't have a problem paying him because you're talking about a guy who can impact 3 games a week.
Yeah.
Potentially even. You know what I mean? So, he could be a guy who gets a lot of opportunity, and depending if he's closing.
But the question I have is, if the Mets want him, let's just say the Mets want him, and he's like, "Listen, I'm the closer," or if you are David Stern, you're not going to pay Tanner Scott closer money when you have your closer. So the question is, to me, I think he'd be a great fit with the Mets if it's understood, like, hey, you're the 7th, 8th inning guy, and Edwin's our guy. What I mean? But again, more than I. These players have egos, and they like, hey, I want the status of I'm the closer of the New York Mets, I'm the closer of the New York Yankees, I'm the closer of the LA Dodgers or the Red Sox.
Yeah, I think. Look, I don't know Tanner Scott. I don't know what his attitude is. I don't know what he's looking for, and or not looking for. But to me, if he's a team player, and you want to pick up a winner, and this is a guy you already have a closer, I would have no problem going out and spending money on this guy if I'm the Mets, for example, and go get this guy and bolster your bullpen, which was definitely a little bit of a weak spot at times this past season. And just to finish talking about the closers, and I know we're running tight on time here, but there's some other guys that I like that have been closers in their career, who have been setup men, who I think you might catch lightning in a bottle with. Yates is a guy who's been a closer, who's could do different roles for you. David Robertson is another guy. And
he's like 100 right now, and he still plays.
Yeah, no, these guys are still playing and could, in the right situation, right place, be an asset, in my opinion. The other one, and again, I'll let you talk about it more, is Clay Holmes. I mean, he's a guy who struggled this past year, lost his job as the closer for the Yankees, but I think he could be a guy who rebounds and bounces back with a very good year and could be like a difference maker in the right team. Yeah,
I agree about Holmes, although I think his days with the Yankees are done.
No, I think he's done with the Yankees, but I'm saying like if you're a team looking to add.
Yeah, I think he can have the type of season he had last year with another team and not have the scrutiny that he had with the Yankees, right?
Probably.
And I don't think he's that bad of a pitcher how he pitched last year, like 10 blown saves. I don't think he's that pitcher. I think, listen, he's going to blow saves because of, how you pitch him. But great pitcher. And whoever gets him, whether it's for the 7th, 8th inning or the 9th inning, I think they're going to have a solid pitcher in their bullpen.
Well, I agree 100% with you. Listen, Lou, I think we've covered this from A to Z. There's probably names we left out. Sorry if we missed you, but look, I think we covered we covered the guys. We got our thoughts on them. Curious if anybody's watching this and has comments on it. We'd love to see them on our social posts. I think that we've it's a really cool market. It's an interesting year. I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen in the coming weeks. And we'll see how this plays out, and we'll see over the coming years who was right, who was wrong, who's wrong. But I think we're in agreement on a lot of things, and some things maybe not, but for the most part we are. And so that's pretty much our free agent frenzy show.
That's going to be amazing. Listen, it's going to be even better when we do our winter meeting show, because that's where we're going to kind of get a sense of where everything is kind of.
Yeah, and that'll be coming in the coming weeks. So anyway, lastly, I know we have the Miami Minute. I'm just going to make it the Cam Ward 30 seconds instead. Cam Ward is, for some reason, is coming off people's Heisman lists. I saw a Heisman list on TV the other day. They had 5 guys, and Cam Ward isn't on it. The Miami Hurricanes would probably be like 3-7, 4-6 without Cam Ward. Cam Ward has to be in New York at the Heisman. I believe he's the Heisman Trophy winner. I think he's the best player in the country. He is to me, it goes back to the old baseball argument. The MVP, to me, is the most valuable player to their team. Okay? The Heisman is, to me, the most valuable player to his team. Okay? I know it's the player of the year. Travis Hunter, tremendous talent. Love the guy. Austin Gentry, the running back at Boise, tremendous. Love the guy. It's a couple other quarterbacks. Nobody holds a candle to my Cam. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Lou. We'll see you guys later.
Take care, guys.